Hi all, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to share a story with you about a father and stepmother who were arrested on February 4th of 2021 and charged with abusing their son, 11-year-old Roman Lopez, in Placerville, California. If this case sounds familiar, it's because you heard about it before, 1 year ago. 'Cause that's when Roman's garbage father and stepmother reported him missing on January 11th of 2020. According to police, after hours of searching for Roman, they found him deceased in a storage bin in the basement of his home. Although police, of course, believed Roman died under suspicious circumstances, apparently they couldn't prove it. So, no arrest was made at the time. Autopsy results showed no evidence of physical abuse on Roman's body, but it was determined that he was extremely malnourished and dehydrated at the time of his death. So, even though this poor child was found dead in a storage bin in the basement of his own home while he was in the care of his father, Jordan Piper, and his stepmother, Lindsay Piper, an arrest was not made in the case for over a year, until now. I wanted to cover this story for a number of reasons. One, to let you know that arrests finally came in this case. Two, to let you know that even though his father and stepmother were finally arrested, they will not be charged with his murder. And three, to give us all some hope that even though it may take forever, arrests can and will eventually be brought in cases that seem hopeless, such as the current case of missing 3 and 4-year-old adopted brothers Orrin and Orson West, or Sincere and Classic, who went missing back in December of 2020 from Cal City, California, and are yet to be found. I've been watching their case closely, and I know people all over the world are praying that they're found safe soon. But because we're not seeing any progress in the case, and no arrest or arrests yet, we're getting frustrated. I know I am. So, one of the reasons why I thought it was important to cover this story is to let us know not to give up hope, even as the months pass with no answers. I never followed Roman Lopez's case when it happened back in January of 2020. I don't remember even hearing about it, because if I did, I'm sure I would have followed it. But, as much as I would have prayed that justice would have been served in Roman's case, knowing that he was found in a storage bin in his own basement, and knowing that no arrest was being made, would have just pissed me off to no end. So, now I'm not so sorry I missed it. Waiting and waiting, never knowing if an arrest would ever be made, would have driven me nuts. For those of you who followed the Braylon Noble case out of Toledo, Ohio from September of 2020, you know what I'm talking about. Little 3-year-old Braylon Noble was reported missing by his mother, who claimed he fell out of a window at their apartment complex and disappeared, only to be discovered in the gated-in pool at their apartment complex days later, after police say that they had already had divers search the pool. So you do the math. But there is yet to be an arrest made in Braylon's case either. We're still waiting. And it's frustrating. But as we see in Roman's case, we shouldn't give up hope. Not to say that Roman's case isn't still frustrating. Yes, arrests were finally made, but the suspects are not being charged with his murder. According to police, they have been charged with child abuse, poisoning, and torture. No mention of murder. How? Hell if I know. Doesn't make a lick of sense to me. The police chief who did the press conference to announce that they finally made arrests in this case said that the DA's office believes they can prove each of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt, which is great. I'm glad to hear it. But I have a couple questions. A child was found dead, and they can prove child abuse beyond a reasonable doubt, but they can't prove that the abuse led to his murder? He was found deceased, and they can prove he was poisoned beyond a reasonable doubt. But they can't prove that the poisoning led to his murder? Maybe I need to put it in another way. He was found dead in a storage bin in the basement of his home, under the care of his father and stepmother, who have been charged with torturing him. But they are unable to prove that abusing him, poisoning him, and torturing him caused his death? I'm sorry. I can't believe I just heard myself say that. It confused me for a second. Now, I'm never one to look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm happy Roman's abusers have finally been arrested and will hopefully pay dearly for their disgusting crimes. But, and it's a huge but how in the hell are they not being charged with his murder? I'd like to know, 'cause then I could explain it to you. But right now, I can't. I got nothing. Other than, as I read about this case, I couldn't help but notice some similarities between both Roman's case and the case of the missing West boys, Orrin and Orson. Not that I'm linking the two by any means, because I'm not. I just couldn't help but notice the similarities, that's all. Police say that at the time of Roman's death, he lived in his home with his father, stepmother, and 7 other children, ranging in age from 1 to 17 years old. But during their investigation, they did not find that any of the other children in the home suffered the same abuse that Roman did. Orrin and Orson West lived in their home with their adoptive parents and 4 other children, but they were the only 2 who mysteriously went missing without a trace. Police say Roman's family had just recently moved to Placerville and only lived in their home for a little over 2 months when Roman was reported missing. The West boys' parents had just moved into their home in Cal City in September of 2020, and the boys were reported missing on December 21st, just about 3 months after the move. Roman's parents did an interview after police found his body, claiming they had no idea what happened to Roman or where the police found him. Apparently, police did not disclose exactly where they found Roman until they made the arrests, because the chief said they wanted to keep that information private while investigators worked the case. Even though I'm going to go out on a limb and assume, and you don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm willing to look like an ass and assume that Roman did not put himself into that storage bin. I know. I assume a lot. But it's just me. It's who I am. Anyway, Orrin and Orson's adoptive parents also did an interview, claiming they have no idea what happened to them. Roman was reported missing by his father and stepmother, and they claimed the last place they saw him was at their home before he went missing. Same with Orrin and Orson West. Last seen at their home by their adoptive parents. When the police chief was asked why it took a year to make an arrest in Roman's case, he responded by saying that gathering information about the boy's family was a challenge. Adding to the complexity of this case was how often this family moved and the various agencies they had encountered, which I found intriguing. What did he mean by agencies? So I looked into it. I found an article in the Sacramento Bee that was posted online after Roman was found back in January 2020 that stated that 4 vehicles were parked in the driveway at Roman's home after police sealed off the home with crime scene tape after his body was found in the basement. The article stated that 3 of the vehicles' license plates were Michigan plates, not California. Police at the time were giving very limited details about the case, so the reporters did a little investigating on their own. They found one of the missing child flyers that had been posted about Roman and found that the number listed to call with information belonged to Roman's father. So they researched the number and traced it to Grand Blanc, Michigan, where they apparently moved to Cali from. Down the rabbit hole I go. So I dug a little deeper and found another article titled Michigan Woman Whose Daughters Lived with Placerville Boy Found Dead, says he was such a good boy. In that article, I found a woman in Michigan who said her 3 daughters were in the care of Roman's stepmother at the time of Roman's death. She said after Roman's body was found, all 7 children in the home were taken into custody by Children's Protective Services. Her 3 girls and the 4 other children. Police did not confirm whether the 4 other children removed by Children's Protective Services were the biological children of Roman's father or stepmother or both. So, the only child that had been confirmed at that time to be linked to either of the parents in Roman's home was Roman. Now, the Michigan woman who said her daughters lived in the home and were removed by CPS said she was fighting to get her daughters back. But she did not say whether or not her girls were being fostered by Roman's stepmom, meaning that they were actually in the foster care system, or if they were just living with the family. But I go back to what the police chief said, that gathering information about the boy's family was a challenge. Adding to the complexity of this case was how often this family moved and the various agencies they had encountered. Now, here I go assuming again, but if 5 of the children were the bio kids of either parent or both, and only the 3 girls from Michigan weren't their bio children, I can't imagine it would have taken a year to gather information about the family. And what agencies would then be involved? But if Roman was in fact their only biological child, and all the rest were adopted or being fostered by them, then it could take a while to trace all that. And if they were receiving income for all 7 of the other children through the state, but they are the evil pieces of shit that the police say they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt they are, then it would make sense that the only child they would abuse would be their own, because they weren't receiving any money for Roman. If anything, he was costing them money, because his dad may have been paying child support to Roman's mother. Just a thought. So, they were possibly foster or adoptive parents, which is also the case with the missing West boys. The 2 West boys were adopted, and they lived with 2 children who were biological and 2 other who were fostered. Police said when they arrested Roman's father and stepmother, they found them in a motel where they had been living. Now, I don't think it would be feasible to live in a motel with a lot of kids, so I'm going to make one more assumption. Just one. Then I'll quit. I promise. I'm going to assume that they never got their kids back from CPS, but they just went on living their lives. Kind of how we're currently seeing in the case of the missing West boys, huh? Their other children were removed from their home by CPS too, back in December. And I haven't heard that they've gotten them back. But I don't see them searching for their missing kids either. I haven't heard they're fighting for their kids back. Have you? All I've heard is that the adoptive father has time to walk his dog, but not to look for his missing boys, and that he and the adoptive mother have time to shop at a store for sex toys, but no time to look for their boys. I mean, I'm not always the queen of having my priorities in place, but come on, throw us a bone. At least put on a show and act like you care. Maybe I expect too much from people. I don't know. Anyway, so, hopefully some justice will be served for Roman Lopez, but definitely not the justice he deserves. He didn't starve himself. He didn't severely dehydrate himself. And by my calculations, he didn't put himself in a storage bin after he died either. So, somebody needs to pay for his murder. Police say their investigation is ongoing, so maybe they'll find enough evidence to upgrade the charges. I pray they do. They need to pay for what they did to him. I hope they rot in hell. Oh, and speaking of people who should rot in hell, I wonder if we'll see Orrin and Orson West's adoptive parents relocating to a motel anytime soon. I wouldn't doubt that they're packing as we speak, but I shouldn't make that assumption. I've never been one to assume. Thank you all so very much for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on my next video.